Hello, and welcome to our next NAP. NAP stands for Nonprofit Auditor Points, and I'm Irina Oreshkova, your nonprofit auditor. And today I want to continue our series about explaining what auditors do when they test various accounts. Today I want to talk about accrued vacation and vacation expense. Let's start. First of all, vacation expense, it's not a separate expense. It's part of the payroll. So typically, when you see vacation expense, be aware that it's part of your compensation, your vacation, your payroll, wages. What is special about vacation? We as the auditors, when we start testing vacation expenses and accrued vacation. First of all, let me explain. Accrued vacation is unpaid vacation expense, right? The accrued means vacation that employees are entitled to as of the end of the year, but that liability have not been paid yet. So what is important for us as auditors when we start testing accrued vacation? First of all, we look at the employee handbook. Why? Because employee handbook has a accrued vacation policy. Probably every employee knows how much vacation they're entitled to. It's important, and therefore it's very critical for nonprofit to understand the accrued vacation policy. What it means how many days employees allowed to have a vacation, if it's by years of experience, years of employment, if there's any cap, meaning that above specific number employees stop accruing and they cannot go above specific accumulated untaken vacation. That's a policy that every nonprofit have based on our experience, but interestingly enough, not every nonprofit follows that. Some nonprofits have their policy that have their own life and they follow some other rules. So because nonprofits can create its own rules, they have to follow these rules. Why? Because your employees have employee handbook. They know what they're entitled. So nonprofit cannot just ignore these rules and apply some different rules. And if these rules are no longer current, nonprofits does need to update the employee handbook. Again, nothing fancy. Nonprofit can't just use current technology and just go and say, we want to create this extra memo that we updating our handbook for vacation policy. It can be very simple, just one page. Get the board of directors to review it, approve it, and put an effective date, and that policy will be applied prospectively, not retrospectively, prospectively, meaning moving forward. So we as the auditors, we're looking at the handbook to get the policy. And once we receive the policy, we understand, is there any cap on accrued vacation, how many hours employees can accrue for vacation, and so forth. Then we see a number of accrued vacation on the liability section, on a trial balance. We see, for example, $40,000 of accrued liability. If we see that last year was also $40,000 and this year $40,000, most likely the number was not just updated and it's not the correct amount. But what we do, we ask for policy and we ask for accrued vacation schedule. So schedule is very critical for several reasons. First of all, for audit, we want to make sure that based on accrued vacation schedule, number is properly recorded in your accounting system. But also internally for operation purposes, for your legal protection as a nonprofit, you want to make sure that you maintain a good and robust accrued vacation schedule because it's employees' time, it's their money, and they might have questions why my accrued vacation, that number. A nonprofit has to be able to substantiate how they calculate it, and that number is in agreement with the policy. So how vacation looks like, accrued vacation schedule looks like. Nonprofit should have beginning year accrued vacation balances plus how many hours employee accrued based on policy. For example, each employee gets 10 hours a month. So we can see if employee was employed all full year, we know that employee should have accrued 120 hours. Then the next column would be how many days were taken. Let's just say employee took 2 30-hour vacation. So 120 minus 60, meaning 60 hours left balance. And if it was new employee that started with 0 accrued balance, or maybe your nonprofit has a policy that says no vacation gets carried over. If your nonprofit has a policy that no vacation carried over, there's going to be no accrued vacation. It means that your employees have to either use all vacation hours by the end of the year or lose them. But again, let's just say your employee had beginning balance 0. They accumulated 120 hours. They took 60 hours, therefore 60 hours left. Then we will, as the auditors, pull your payroll report as of last day of the year, and we get hourly rate for that employee. We will multiply that hourly rate by the number of hours accumulated to come up with accrued vacation liability for that employee. And that will need to be done for each employee. That's how a schedule looks like. A lot of payroll companies do that kind of schedule for the nonprofits. Some nonprofits maintain their own schedule in Excel. Either way, we as auditors do not have a preference what format it maintained, as long as we see it by employee in the format beginning year, additional accrued, hours taken, and the ending balance. Why we need that format? Because as auditors, we need to be able to test it. So what we do, we're selecting randomly or haphazardly couple employees, and we recalculate if the beginning balance for that employee agrees with the ending balance last year. Right? So we can see the numbers are properly carried over from last year to this year. Then if we see the accrual amount in agreement with the accrued vacation policy that is documented in your handbook, for example, if it says that each employee accumulates 10 hours a month, and we see employee accumulated 200 hours a year, we know that either it's a mistake or it was an update in the policy. And if there was update in the policy, we ask you for a new policy. Sometimes nonprofits do have update in policy, but nothing was updated. It was all internally communicated. Again, advice, any update in the policy need to be in writing. Then we see hours taken, and we see ending balance, and we'll take ending balance, and we will pull payroll report, and we will recalculate if the total dollar value is correct per schedule. Again, rate that used to calculate accrued vacation needs to be used on the last rate that was effective on the last day of that year. For example, if your organization year end is June 30, we're gonna pull the report, the payroll report on a June 30, and recalculate hourly rate as of June 30, and that rate will be applied, meaning multiplied by accumulated hours to come up with accrued vacation for that employee at the end of the year, which is June 30. So it's required to make sure that you apply proper pay rate. Accrued vacation is critical for several reasons. First of all, it's part of your compensation. Second of all, it's related to employees, and they would be quite unhappy if the organization is not properly applies pay rate, calculates accumulated hours. And third of all, as advice of the good internal control for organization periodically to review your schedule and make sure that none of the employees either don't take a vacation, not a good indicator, and or the amount that they are accruing is not in accordance with the policy, or maybe your policy needs to be updated. Maybe you will come to understanding that some of the employees accrue too much vacation. That for the reasons for your internal control, because people don't take the time off, and there's possibility of fraud. But also, if your nonprofit accumulates too much of accrued vacation, it becomes the big burden on nonprofit to eventually pay that amount if employees leave the organization. So you want to make sure that the amount is manageable, that maybe it's a good idea to establish a cap, and I'll tell employees you either take a vacation or you lose vacation, and see if there's any employees that do not take a vacation and willing to lose it. It might be also indication of some problems. And as a management, advise employees to take a vacation. So that would be accrued vacation. It's not a separate type of expense. It's a separate type of liability. It's part of the accrued compensation, but it's a part of the wages and salaries. So again, make sure to maintain a good, robust schedule, because it's critical not only for the audit, but also for the overall organization's operating activity. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day, and looking forward to see you for the next step. Be safe. Bye.